So my name is Leah Yuskevich, and I'm a physiotherapist, and I'm from Peak Function Movement-Based Physical Therapy. So we're going to be demonstrating a hamstring stretch using the TrueStretch cage, and Bonner is going to be our demonstrator. So let's have Bonner in the TrueStretch. Let's have your right leg in the trough there. So when we're stretching the hamstring muscle, we want to pay attention to its origin and insertion. So it attaches here at the buttock region, and then it comes down the back of the leg, and then it attaches on either side of the knee, but actually in the front of the knee. So when we want to stretch it, we're going to get him to actually try to create movement at the pelvis and not at his low back. So I'm going to have Bonner with his leg pointing straight up towards the ceiling there, and I'm going to have him try to move forward to try to stretch that hamstring. And we really want the pivot point to be here at the pelvis and not at his back or his upper back there. So because there's 3 hamstring muscles, we want to make sure that we stretch all 3 of them. So the first thing I'm going to have him do is I'm going to have him with his toe pointing up towards the ceiling. Then after about 10, I'm going to have him turn his toe inwards, and that's going to help isolate that outer aspect of the hamstring muscle. And then I'm going to have him turn his toe outwards, and that will help isolate the inner aspect of the hamstring muscle. So it's really important that we get him to pivot here at the pelvis, and I'm just going to help him out here. So my hands are on his pelvis, and I'm going to get him to move more at his pelvis here versus his low back. So a couple things that you want to keep in mind. So for Bonner, this is quite hard, so we could actually put the hamstring muscle on a little bit of a slack. So I'm going to get him to bend his knee slightly, and that will free up his pelvis, and that will allow him to actually start moving more at his pelvis there, keeping his back straight so he gets a proper stretch. So we're stretching the hamstring muscle here in the sagittal plane, so the forwards and backwards plane, and we'll also be demonstrating how to do it in your side-to-side frontal plane and then your transverse plane as well, which is your rotational plane. The other thing I want to mention is that the positioning of his arms, if his arms are up high or in front, that's going to put his back on more of a stretch, so that will also affect how his pelvis can move. So if you're a little bit tighter, a couple things you want to keep in mind is that you're going to bring your knee into a slight bend, and you're going to keep your hands a little bit lower by stretching the tissue above and stretching the tissue below that attachment point. You're not going to get less motion at the pelvis. So for him, let's just see what it looks like. He has a slack on his knee joint, but now he has tension from up and above. So let's see how you move. Good. And then let's have you bring your arms down. So there's slack both on the upper attachment point as well as below. And let's have you move your pelvis forwards and backwards. There we go. Good. So about 10 repetitions, toe pointing up, toe pointing inwards, and toe pointing outwards. So the next thing that I'm going to have him do is we're going to do our side-to-side motion. So to create that, I'm going to have him reach and create a side bend with his trunk. So grab where you feel comfortable. And the next thing I'm going to have him do, instead of moving his pelvis forwards and backwards, I'm going to have him try to move side to side. Excellent. So I'm having him side bend to the left. So after about 10 repetitions side to side, I'd have him do the opposite side bend. So have you bring your arms over to the other side and trying to move side to side. So you'll feel slightly different stretching with this, back and forth. Good. And again, you want your feet to be pointing forward or straight up to the ceiling, inwards and outwards with all of those motions. Now the last one that I'm gonna have him do is the rotational one. So we're gonna actually have him rotate his upper body, grabbing onto the true stretch. And now I want you to think about your axis of rotation being your spine. So if his pelvis is what we're gonna move here, I'm gonna have him, not his upper body, I want him to try to move his pelvis this way and pull it back that way. Good. And then let's have him go to the other side. So a little bit more restriction on this side here, a little bit harder for him. The other thing I want to mention is standing leg. Try to keep that standing leg straight and your foot flat on the ground. And again, the hand positioning, you can make it a little bit harder by placing your hands higher up but still keeping that rotation, or a little bit lower. Good. Really want that pelvis to be moving, not so much the low back there. Good. And you would do this on both sides with your 3 foot positions as well.